My name is Raj Patel. I'm an activist. I do a lot of work around the food systems. I work in support of farmers and farm workers and landless people around the world to be able to build a food system where everyone can feed themselves. I'm the author of a book called Stuffed and Starved, which is about hunger and obesity in the world. And more recently a book called The Value of Nothing, which is about how the prices for what we pay don't really include the full costs of the consequences of what we buy. The root cause of hunger is very clear. It's poverty. In 2008 we had, 49 million Americans going hungry. And that was a year where we had plenty of food. The food was on the shelves, but the reason people starved was not because of a shortage of food, but because of poverty. People don't go hungry for a want of food, they go hungry for a want of money to be able to pay for it.
What is your definition?
There's this very simple international definition that someone is poor, absolutely poor, who is living on less than $1 a day. But poverty really is about an affront to your dignity. And there's poverty here because the systems that we've set up exclude very systematically a large portion of society. And the way that poverty is felt, for example, in the United States, is through something called food insecurity. Now, food insecurity happens when, at some point during a year, you don't know where your next meal is coming from. If you add up the full costs of food insecurity in the United States, if you add up the days of work lost, the cost of depression, the cost of added costs of healthcare, you end up with a figure that's well over $100 billion. I think sustainable living is living with the consequences of your actions, particularly in rich countries. We owe poor countries a huge debt. If you add up the way that we've been living over the past 40 years, and look at the costs that rich countries have inflicted on poor countries in terms of deforestation, in terms of overfishing, using their natural resources, our pollution of the ozone layer, it turns out that we owe poor countries over $7 trillion. The way that we count things, the way that we live so unsustainably, we've been able to transfer basically our crap onto their doorstep, and they live with the consequences of our mistakes. The way the government has been co-opted and the way that corporations behave actively get in our way and have de-skilled us, have dumbed us down, have made us sort of passive animals in the face of the way that capitalism operates. The only way that change has ever happened is when democracy has bubbled up and never trickled. Organising happens come what may, and that organising can happen everywhere, from your church to your local council, to your local school. There are a number of organising opportunities in the spaces that we move in and out of every day. The movements that are organising initially around food have found themselves getting involved in everything from public health to changing the boundaries of public space with community gardens and with market gardens. All of a sudden you start with initially concerns about food, and you end up with heart disease over here, you end up with eminent domain and taking back from private property space that you can use then to redistribute and to grow food, and you end up in a range of other areas. What's really exciting about this movement is that it's a movement now driven by young people. What we need now is the high of actually reclaiming our communities, and we can do that. And I think that people are hungry for that right now. And people know that there's something very wrong with the way that the world is. Getting together and sharing a meal is a great way to build the kinds of bonds of trust, of friendship, of joy that we need in order to fuel our sort of quest for social change. Right now, in the middle of this recession, in the middle of what looks to be some fairly dark times, there's a lot of hope. And I think that now's a good time to start getting active and start building for what could be some tough times ahead, but what could also be some very joyful times ahead. Hi, my name is Raj Patel. Sustainable living is the opposite of poverty. Go live real food.